you were raised Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, my mom's Roman Catholic. My dad's a recent born again. But religion wasn't really a big part of my childhood. We all experimented with religion. When I was really young, wanted to go to church a lot. That lasted about a year. And then, I don't know, things just became, it became more important to concentrate on keeping our family nuclear through all of these moves than it did to keep our family, religious. So my parents are still religious, but I was turned off by religion very, very young and did a lot of my own studying, and even when I was at Catholic school was really the only non-practicing Catholic that went there. And I consider myself an atheist from the age of 16 or so.
From your experience of religion, not what you studied in books, but just your personal experience of it, what did you love and what did you hate about it?
Oh, I loved a lot. I loved the belonging, the group belonging. I'm a consummate fan. So, whether it's with the Mets or another sports team or with a religion, I really like to be a cheerleader and a supporter, and I get really into it. So, I was really turned on by that sense of, okay, group identity, you're one of us. But I never found the answers that everyone always talked about having. I didn't get any answers. I just got a lot of questions from religion, questions that were not easily answered. And when they were answered, I just wasn't convinced. So it was a sad process for me to back away from faith, because I really wanted it to be part of who I was, but it just wouldn't have been honest because I didn't believe it.
How did the clergy, children, sex abuse scandals of the Catholic Church affect you?
I was in Boston at the time, so, it was happening right in front of me, and, I think it affected people who were part of those congregations a lot more than it did me. I was already at a place in my late teens to say, well, I'm not surprised, or, I guess I didn't excuse it, but I said, well, that doesn't really affect me. That doesn't really have anything to do with me. So, I was really sort of outside of it, looking in.
Mm-hmm. I just read a book and interviewed the author. It's called Losing My Religion, How I Lost My Faith Reporting on Religion in America, by William Lobdell. He used to cover religion for the Los Angeles Times while he was an evangelical Christian, and then he lost his faith. But one thing that he said that fascinated me, when he was writing his memoir, he was inspired by the example of Howard Stern as a truth teller. He felt like Howard Stern told more of the truth than like any clergy person he knew, as far about his own life in particular. This is kind of far afield, and I have no idea if you ever listened to Howard Stern, but do you think of Howard Stern as a truth teller?
I don't think it's really a fair comparison. I guess, Howard Stern's an entertainer, and I'm sure some of the things he says are true. Some of them probably aren't. But I think his responsibilities to the truth are at a different level than, say, a clergyman, or religious leaders are. But I didn't find anything sinister going on in the church. It wasn't that I backed away from. I know I have a lot of friends who just think of the church as a business and as sort of a sinister machine, and I don't really have those sentiments. I think that the people that belong and that are leading congregations are earnest and sincere for the most part, and I'm not a militant atheist. I in part became an atheist because I'm not really a big joiner, So I didn't want to leave one club for another. I wanted to leave a club that I didn't feel like I could be an honest member of. That was it. And if that changes, I've said this to a number of people. If that changes, I'd gladly go back to the club, but not a second before I actually would mean it.
What is the story of you and God? You said you became an atheist at 16. Prior to that, did you have what some people call a relationship with God? And like you're an atheist, but do you miss God, or what's the story of you and God?
I really wanted a relationship with God. I played the part for a long time. I wanted a cross necklace when I was 12, and my grandmother took me to get one because it was really important to me, and going to church was really important to me when I was young. Like I said, for like a year. And it just wasn't a two-way relationship. I just wasn't getting anything back. And I really loved the ceremony of it all, and I really loved all of the rituals associated with going to church and taking communion and studying, the Bible and catechism. I really liked all of those rituals, but it was always empty. It was always waiting for something to click in, and it just didn't. And, maybe some will say I didn't give it enough chance, but I think I worked harder than a lot of people I know at being a person of faith. And it just never happened for me. And I not for lack of trying or wanting, it just didn't.
Have you been in any figurative foxholes over the past 10 years of your life when you were calling out for God even though you were an atheist?
Yeah, I guess around, between 16 and 18 was sort of a trying time. I was really kind of lost. I didn't know if the ballet thing was going to work out. It was really, it's a really competitive environment and sort of a unique experience that only, a fraction of the population goes through. This crazy scrutiny at a very young age, and on a pretty big stage. That was hard. And certainly I prayed and asked for guidance that I either didn't get or didn't recognize getting. But again, there was no real, turning away from God because I had been abandoned by Him. There was nothing like that. For me, it was an intellectual process. I couldn't intellectually buy it, and I wrestled with my head a lot. And, it just didn't happen for me.
Have you turned to anything as a God and religion substitute, or you've just moved on?
Yeah, no, I've moved on. I don't think there's anything that I'm, that I consider filling that hole. I in fact, leave that hole open. I'm leaving a space for that, in the chance that, God wants to come and find me. I would really relish that. I think, I envy people of faith. I'm not this angry atheist who thinks they're all stupid or crazy. I'm envious. I just, again, want to be honest about it.
How have you decided between right and wrong? How have you figured out which is which?
Yeah, it's not easy because I don't have, a written, doctrine of any kind, or dogma, I guess. I really believe that a lot of it is visceral, and, I know when I've done something wrong. I've never once been in a situation where I did something wrong and didn't know it. Honestly didn't know that what I had just done was not the right thing to do. I always know. And a lot of it is, it sounds stupid, but I ask, what would my mother say if I did this or if I said this? And that seems to have worked well enough up to this point. It's not a complicated system, but it's, I'm very much in touch with where I'm going, who I am, what I want, what I should do. I'm asking those questions of myself constantly, so I don't feel as blind